we want to talk a little bit of baseball. And Mark McGwire, who, of course, is one of the faces of the quote-unquote steroid era, has beef with the way baseball has handled guys of his era, him, Barry Bonds, and all the other guys that
Gary
were
Sheffield,
accused of
Sammy
using
Sosa.
steroids. Yes. And Sheffield, of course, wasn't pulled onto the carpet like those guys.
No, but he has over 500 home runs, Chris, and he's not in the Hall of Fame. I mean,
yeah, and
that's automatic normally. Yeah, because he's worked out with Barry, and he was in the trial, the Balco trial. But the difference is he wasn't a defendant. He was a witness. You know what I mean? Like that's a big difference. So why didn't they, you know what I mean? Why wasn't he up there with the rest? Right. There were no charges brought against him. He was a witness.
That was amazing. I mean, that trial, it was just some magical stuff going on. I mean, you had guys forgetting how to speak English. It was unbelievable. Was it Sosa and Rafael Palmeiro? Yeah. I mean, they forgot how to speak English. So that's how strong and powerful that trial was. But anyway, here's what McGwire said to A.J. Przinsky.
There was no rules and there was no regulation. Believe me, trust me, if there was any rules in place and that stuff would have never happened. There was no testing, there was no nothing. That was the culture. That's what was going on back in those days. And whatever. But I can personally tell you from me, I didn't need to do it. And I apologize for it, but there was a lot of hard work that went behind all that people want to give me to do what I did.
He's spot on, Chris. I voted for him all 10 years he was on the ballot. Go look at his USC when he was in college, Chris. He was a home run hitter in college. His rookie year, go Google the video. Go to YouTube. Chris, he was this big. He was that skinny. He had 49 home runs his rookie year. Mark McGwire was always a home run hitter. He wasn't a guy struggling who couldn't hit home runs and then all of a sudden took a magical elixir and became a home run hitter. He is spot on all the way up and down. He was never tested. They didn't test for it, Chris. It was not a banned substance. It wasn't until 2005 or 2006 that they put it on the list as a banned substance for people. Now, once you get busted after they put it on the ban list, Chris, then all bets are off. That's why Manny Ramirez got busted a couple times. You know what I mean? After the fact.
Yep.
But he's right. He was never suspended by baseball, and it's not fair. There's a Mitchell report there, Chris, out there, and they're shielding 150 names of people who tested positive. And I guarantee you, some of them are in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, there's no question.
Pudge Rodriguez is in the Hall of Fame, a first ballot. I was in Detroit, working in Detroit, Chris, when all the stuff came out from the Canseco book, and Pudge lost 40 pounds in the offseason and tried to convince us that he was eating salads and walking every night, and that's how he lost the weight. I said, you should write a diet book. He looked at me like I was crazy because he lost so much weight because I guess he got off the stuff, right? He was a different man. And I'm not trying. Dude, Mark McGwire, those guys, they did it. I'm not naive, Chris. You're not naive. We know they did it. But it's unfair to just pick out 4 or 5 guys and make them wear it. Why are we celebrating Tony La Russa as a Hall of Fame manager, Chris, when he benefited off of those guys that you're shunning and you're saying cheated? Why is Joe Torre in the Hall of Fame? How come the Yankees get to keep their World Series championships? They're not tainted, Chris. They had guys on the juice. I mean, which one is it? Either everybody's tainted and we're not counting any of it, or we got to accept it and just call it the steroid era, just the way we do with the segregation era. Do we take away Babe Ruth's numbers and say, well, Babe never played against great black and Hispanic players, Chris? He didn't.
Right.
We accept it.
No, that's a great point.
One last thing. Sandy Koufax and Bob Gibson, some of the greatest pitchers ever. Chris, what did they do after they dominated baseball? They lowered the mound. because it was unfair. Those guys, guys couldn't hit.
We don't take their ERAs
We don't take their
away.
ERAs and their Cy Youngs away when they were dominating baseball. Come on, man. It ain't right.
I agree in that if there was no rule against it, I mean, it's hard to hold the guys accountable. Rob, we've talked about all the guy. Tom House in particular has admitted that in the 60s and 70s, guys were using steroids and all types of stuff. And you and I have talked about the amphetamines that used to be in the clubhouse for all guys to take. Now, after the fact, that's banned.
Right.
And so we don't hold them accountable. So I'm with you there. Where I do disagree with McGwire, and like you said, he was a home run hitter from the get-go.
He was.
But he wasn't – I think he needed the juice to hit 70 and 65 and maybe even 50 plus.
But he hit 49 his rookie year.
Right, but then after that, he was in the 30s pretty much, and until he, started juicing. But here's what I want to throw at you, Rob, because even before the rule that they put in eventually, steroids were really looked down upon. There wasn't a rule, but it was like everybody did feel like, man, don't be using that stuff. It's cheating. So what I want to ask you, and it might be as simple as a CBA, collective bargaining agreement thing, but why wasn't there a rule? Because clearly, I mean, at least in terms of lip service, baseball was against steroids. Now, I don't think they really were, Rob. I think they knew what Sosa and McGwire were doing, but it was bringing, baseball great publicity, and everybody loved it. So
Chris,
I think
you
baseball
covered it.
turned a blind eye.
You were with the
covered
New York
that,
Times.
right.
You covered it. And if you remember, you were all over the country. It was the biggest story. It helped.
was great.
Saved baseball. It
Yep.
saved baseball coming off the strike. And here's the other thing. ESPN, if you remember, Chris, was cutting into no matter what was on ESPN, they were showing their at-bats. You remember that?
Oh,
That's how,
it was crazy. It was great. It was fun to cover. It was fun to be a part of. It was fun to watch as a fan. But why do you think baseball didn't have the rule and waited so long? Because remember, Canseco was coming out talking, and baseball was poo-pooing him. Oh, you can't believe him.
Right.
Don't listen to him. And everybody was frowning on PEDs, but baseball still hadn't had a rule yet.
because I think it was good for business and the stuff that was going on and guys hitting home runs. You remember the commercials, Chris? They even marketed. Chicks love the long ball. You remember
Yep.
that? That was the marketing of baseball. Chicks love the long ball. And it was a part of the game. And I'm not making excuses for anybody.
Yeah, we're not
I'm
justifying
We're
it. We're
not.
just saying it is what it is. And you can't tell the story of baseball without all these guys.
You can't. I mean, you
and like
can't.
you said, there were problems in other eras.
Right. There were other things that
Egregious
went on,
problems.
right, that we accept and we just kind of move on, and we know what era it was, right? Before Jackie Robinson. The segregation era, Chris, that's what it was.
Yep.
And we don't take away anybody's numbers or say they're not legit or try to downgrade them. And the other thing too is, and this is where I just have a real hard, they're not the only ones, Chris. Go Google and find out the people who have been suspended for PEDs, and guess what? More pitchers than hitters. What does that tell you? That most nights Bonds and Sosa and McGwire were probably facing guys, Chris, who had the juice too.
Right.